This is Mrs. Valent. I'm going over the information sheet for isometric sketching. So this is a method or an approach for just freehand drawing, the pictorial method of isometric shapes. So it gives you an approach, a start, and this method is similar to other methods that have been used historically, but this one's quite good as well. Okay, so sketching isometric cubes. Step 1, start by sketching a Y. Try to keep the angles of the Y as even as possible. That is about 120 degrees, but apart from each angle of the Y, each line of the Y. Another approach that's been used historically, which if you're feeling comfortable with it, you can also use the crow's foot or the upside down umbrella. That would be starting with this bottom point. Okay, we're starting with the top point, but that's fine. The Y is a pretty good one because you can rotate your page and have a look from the different angles to make sure that that Y is divided very evenly into 3 parts. So everyone gets an even part of the pizza or pie or cake or whatever. It's a very large piece though. Another method to try and think, because you're sketching, you're not using a protractor or any other equipment to try and get those angles right. So another way that I visualize those angles is by thinking about a 90-degree corner. Okay, so if I think about just a 90-degree corner, and if I divide that 90 degrees in half, that's going to be 45. Now, I can fairly quickly visualize where a 45 degree line is going to go. And then I think, okay, it's got to be lower than that. So my 30 degrees is got to come out lower than the 45. And pretty much every time I draw my angle, I can visualize that 45 and drop it down. And that's the little trick I use to get my 30-degree angles. Okay, right. The first go. Right, and again, it's sketching, it's not technical drawing. You're not using a set square or anything like that. So this is an appropriate method. A common mistake is that not all of those spaces are even, and you end up with a very squashed looking result and cube. Now, once you've got your Y, you need to start doing other lines that are parallel to your Y. So we could do the top face. The top face is a good one to start with. So if you want to do the top face, just remember that all the lines that you do have to be parallel to the ones you've done, to one of those lines on the original Y. So if I look at that line on my original Y, and then move my pencil up. I like to use the pencil just to sort of gauge I'm getting those angles right. You can see those two are parallel. Now on the next one, I've got the other side of my top face. So if I imagine, okay, that line has to be parallel to that line. So again, I can use my pencil just to see if I've got it right. And those lines haven't started to get wacky and move away from those angles, those original angles. Here we've finished off the top face, okay, with those extra lines. So you only had 2 to do up on the top. Now we're going to start to do the outside edge. So you drop down a vertical, and again you're starting to do more parallel lines here down the bottom. So you can use your original Y again to do a line down the bottom, and same with that last line over here. It's going to be parallel to your original Y at this angle, and then drop down and then square it down with a vertical. And make sure that these are verticals. People do tend to start getting them a little wacky and doing this kind of thing. They do need to be vertical, so double check that. And vertical in reference to the bottom of your page, and obviously we're going to be parallel with that line as well. Okay, so reference your first Y. Once you've got that in, you can darken in the whole outline. Now, if you practice the cube again and again, that's a really good point to give you confidence in pretty much drawing anything. It's your basic tool for isometric drawing is to draw and box in that overall shape, because then it's really just like building blocks. It's like putting one block on top of another to build any shape at all. You just have to break it down into those blocks and then start creating them, as they say, on top of each other, and then sort of defining down the shapes inside of that. So sketching an isometric circle, there's a little bit of a trick to doing isometric circles. We've got it, so imagine your square. It might be hard to see in the video. I don't know how hard that is to see, but you've got your top face and you've got your bottom face, and you're going to be doing an isometric circle inside those top faces. So it's important to have those faces as reference to start. Once you've got those faces, the top face and the bottom face as reference, and you've created it all in, you're going to then be defining the midpoint along each edge. They've got a full line going across like a big X, but essentially it's the midpoint between the corners of each edge, and it kind of ends up giving us something like that. Now, once you've got those points, you are going to do arcs inside those, in between those points that are, so for the obtuse angle, for the really open reflex angle, you're going to draw a very large radius arc there and an upside down one there. Now, with the next one, you need to push in to the corner. A common mistake which they've got over here is that people don't tend to push into the corner enough in the acute angle. They tend to go a little bit too down, and they do a curve that's kind of similar to the top and the bottom curves, and they just don't get that nice sort of really crescenty shape inside those little acute angles there. You do that for the top, you do that for the bottom, and then on the outside edge or tangent edge, a tangent is where a line touches an arc at one point, so it's at the very outer edge of something. You run a line that goes directly down from the outer edge of both of those isometric circles, and then you've got your cylinder. So these are the basic steps for creating an isometric circle inside your isometric cube. Now, this method, the creating method, is a really, really helpful method. Gives you the structure to draw any shape at all. So you could be presented with any shape, and then you know how to approach it and you know how to sketch it out. You can just create out all of your isometric, shapes, isometric cubes, box them all in, and then you start carving things down. So you can see here, we've got the big isometric cube, was a prism, and then on top of that, they've done another one, isometric prism, and here, and here, and here. So you've essentially got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it's carved down into the smaller shapes. So this is it. This is how you can use go from a really simple isometric cube into any object you like.